Ladies and gentlemen, I come to you humbly today, dressed as Steve Jobs, with a black shirt on. I don't know why it reminds me of Steve Jobs. I believe it's because he wore black shirts. Of course, he was wearing turtlenecks. This happens to not be a turtleneck, but I cut myself shaving. This is not the result of eating a sandwich with or a burger with ketchup and then getting it on your face. This is blood. And you know, a lot of you people don't understand how tough it is to be a man, because sometimes you gotta cut your face. No, just kidding. My girl was always telling me how much it sucks because girls gotta shave their legs, which I say that's good. That's a good thing. You should definitely be doing that. What level for this? Now this question is for the fellas in the audience who are not attracted to fellas but attracted to females. What level of hairosity on a woman is acceptable to you? All right, you got hairy legs. For me, that's a no-go. Okay. Hairy armpits. For me, that's a mustache. Okay, you get the point. As you may be able to tell, I have almost zero plans for this video, and I'm just going off the fly here. I was thinking a little bit about, well, I'll just tell you what I was reading this morning. Been reading 2 books. I've been reading 4 or 5 books realistically. But this morning I was reading, going back through the Confessions by Saint Augustine, or as I'm told, Augustine. I say Augustine, just sounds right to me. So that's what it is, and anybody who says otherwise is objectively wrong. So I was reading that, and he was, I was at the point where he's in Rome, and he's been learning with Ambrose, but he's got this buddy who he was friends with this dude's dad at one point, but he has this friend, and now I don't recall his name, but his friend was sort of starting to get induced into some of these spiritual things. Now, Augustine was studied under the Manichaeans, or a follower of Manichae, which I'm told is a Gnostic belief. But you know, I don't know, guys. I really don't know a whole lot about this stuff. I was talking with my family last night about this, and they're quite educated in that type of thing, and they were saying all sorts of stuff about that. It was pretty interesting. But so regardless, Augustine's buddy is addicted to going to see the Roman games in the Colosseum. And now I'm not 100% sure when Augustine says the games, I'm not sure if that means the gladiatorial games, because then he makes a distinction later on, which we'll get to, of the gladiatorial games. But regardless, this guy was going to the Colosseum and watching the games. So maybe what he was on at first was some sort of maybe it's like a carnival in a way. I don't know. I need to do more research on that. When I hear Roman games, I immediately think of the gladiatorial games, mainly because, well, us as a modern audience, we love violence just like the Romans did. So all that other nonsense that they were doing, we don't really care about, because what we do care about is that there were real dudes in an arena killing each other. But so I gotta quit interrupting myself. But so and I gotta get this thing going here. Um, I'm doing all the things the audience hates. I'm sitting in this chair, which I'm told is horrible. Why would I ever sit in this chair? And I'm saying a lot. I'm a flawed human, everybody. I enjoy chairs, and I say sometimes when my brain is trying to fill in gaps. See, I just did it again. But I ask that you have grace with me. Oh, I said it again. So, I'm a flawed human, just like Augustine's friend, and just like Augustine. So, Augustine's friend, Augustine ends up, because he's a teacher, so he's making lectures on all kinds of interesting stuff, and he uses as an example the Roman games to kind of prove some sort of point. And this friend of Augustine's happened to be at one of the lectures, and now this turned him away from the games. And Augustine says, like, how God was working through him in that moment. Because this was an addiction of his, was going and seeing this kind of entertainment all the time, instead of thinking about the real important stuff. And so at a certain point, this friend, he turns away from, he stops going, he stops indulging in it, and he's studying and doing the right things, presumably. But at a certain point, his friends, who still are living this kind of life of hedonic pleasure through going to the games, seeing people kill each other, they say, you need to come with us. Come on, man. Why don't you ever come out and party anymore? Why don't you ever come watch people slaughter each other anymore? How fun is that, right? And so he says that he'll go along with them for whatever reason. He goes with them, and he says that I'm going to keep my eyes closed the entire time. But at the gladiatorial games, the crowd makes a loud noise, and this so strikes him that he can't help himself. He opens his eyes, and Augustine describes it as, at that moment when his eyes were opened, a knife had pierced his heart, pierced his soul. The viper had gotten to him, and now he was back in, immediately addicted. Back to the addiction of this sort of voyeuristic Schadenfreude pleasure. I'm being redundant by saying these things, but I guess voyeurism would be the best way of saying that. taking pleasure in other people's pain, watching the gladiatorial games. And that got me thinking about how strange that is that people used to do that, and how wild that is that that could be an addiction. But then it made total sense because we do the exact same things today. We just don't have people literally stabbing and hacking at each other in real life. But we have bread and circuses. And which is interesting. I think that this is a universal part of human nature, is that we love entertainment and we love good health. We like when we're not under any kind of pain. So we're naturally shy away from pain and try to go to pleasure. And so much so that through philosophy, there are all types of philosophy, all oriented towards the good, right? Towards the good. And everybody has, people have different ideas about what that is. What is the ultimate good? What is the good? And so through this, we get Epicureanism, which posits that pleasure is the ultimate good, right? But it turns out, see, this is where they're kind of smart, is too much pleasure equals not pleasure. This is what Plato understands. This is what Socrates understands. I was also just reading the Gorgias today. Callicles wants to satisfy. He says that a really good life is somebody who has liberty and is able to satisfy all these desires, and the best thing for him to do is keep getting bigger and bigger desires and keep satisfying them and just keep going and keep going and keep going. And Socrates says that sounds like you're trying to fill up a jar with holes in it, or something like that. You're trying to fill up a jar with holes in them that's just continually leaking. Now, Callicles and Nietzsche sound very similar, and it also sounds similar to Freud, because he doesn't want anybody to be repressed, because that would be bad. If you're limited in your desires, that's repression. You're repressing yourself. Okay, but back to Epicurus. The Epicureans are kind of smart. Same with the oracle at Delphi. Know thyself and nothing to excess. You can go too far with your pleasures. So the Epicureans say, sex. That's a pretty great thing, is it not? But here's the deal with that. If you fall in love with somebody and you're having sex with whoever your beloved is, what could happen is that your love runs out. And this leads to hurt and displeasure. So naturally, we don't want any of that. So what's the pleasurable thing in love? The physical expression of it, which is sex. So we will necessarily only have sex with people that we do not love, so that our heart will never be burdened by this displeasurable thing, which is when we break up. So avoid all breakups, just have sex with people you don't know, And this is the way to indulge in that pleasure on a moderate level. And you don't want to do it all the time, you know. So the ultimate good is finding just the right amount of pleasure. Just the right amount that doesn't tip the scale into displeasure. So you can live that life, and you can go through that, but at a certain point, the question will arise as to whether you're satisfied with that. In other words, you'll get bored eventually. Maybe not everybody. I'm sure some people are perfectly fine. Actually, definitely some people are perfectly fine with just kind of living that sort of life. Especially nowadays, that we've lost all kind of meaning, then there's only things that I like and things that I don't like, and I'd rather do the things that I like while I'm here because this is my opportunity to do that. So, the problem is that we indulge too much, okay? For some people that live lives like this, you get, because they run into this, that they get bored, like Kurt Cobain, wishing he was easily amused. You get bored. And this is something that Kierkegaard brings up, actually, is that boredom is the root of all evils. At a certain point, you're going to look for, you're going to run out of sensual pleasures, and you're going to be looking for something more than that. Hopefully. Now, either you find what that is, or you might be in a bad way. Then you might have what some people have been asking me about, which is an existential crisis. In other words, why am I here? Now, I was discussing this with my uncle the other day about an individual that we both know, and I don't want to say too much about it, just out of caution, but we were discussing how some people just aren't concerned with deeper things like this. And I think it's easy. Look, firstly, some people just aren't all that interested in deep stuff. Now, is there anything wrong with that? Depends who you ask. If you ask Plato, he would say yes. But what we need to have for these type of people who are too stupid to know what's right, we need to give them myths and simple things that they can understand that will orient their action in a correct way, in a correct manner, so that they live good lives without having to really delve into knowing why they're living a good life, or why they don't have to know why they should, but we use stories, we use these types of things to get them to act as such. That's why education matters to Socrates and to Plato. But I was saying that I think when you're younger, there's so many things, you have so many goals, you have so many things in your life that are vying for your attention, and you may be so far from grasping these things that they give you a distraction to the eternal questions, because there's so many questions, temporal questions, like what job am I gonna work? What career do I want? What type of house do I want? What type of watch do I want? What type of girl do I want? What type of car do I want? And there are all types of things in life that are temporal, that are aesthetic, that we are attracted to, that are really good at distracting us. Now, there's an ancient Chinese proverb, and I don't remember exactly how this goes. I could be getting this wrong, so those of you who know more than me, have patience. But it goes, may you get everything that you want. Now, this on the surface sounds like a good luck thing of, may you get all the things that you desire, right? That sounds great. I would love to get all the things that I desire. Why wouldn't I want that? Well, it's actually a curse. Because if you were to just get all the things that you desired, you would immediately grow bored of it. And then you're in a real tough spot. So let's say that your desires are a house, a nice house. I want a mid-century modern track house with an Eames lounge chair, with Persian or Kurdish rugs in the house. I want fill in the blank. I want a gold Rolex Presidential, the day date. I want all these things. So I get all of it. I want a beautiful wife who does the dishes for me and cooks for me and is a trad wife. I want my perfect trad wife. Okay, so I get all my perfect little things that I want, and then I'm immediately like, well, what's next? All right, this is the myth of Sisyphus. Pushing the rock up the hill continuously, these are the lives that we live. And being satiated, now I'd said this before, that I'm satisfied being unsatisfied, and I think that there's something to this. I think that you should be satisfied being unsatisfied, knowing that you are a finite being and the amount of things to learn about is infinite. You have a finite mind, and we are experiencing God's infinite mind. So you're never going to run out of cool stuff to think about, cool stuff to learn about. And this is great. But like Augustine says, our hearts are restless until we rest in thee. So, thee, being God, being the eternal mind, the source, the form of the good, gives us all kinds of great things to learn about and great things to chase after. This is found in temporal things. This is found in material things. This is found in people, but himself, he is eternal. So trying to find out about the eternal truths. Okay, finding out about justice, truth, beauty, virtue, piety, all these things are connected in the big form, which is the good. That's God. So these things can be found across all types of fields, and I've been gifted with the gift of being interested. Not everybody is interested. Some people aren't so interested, and everybody's interested in something. But what matters, and everybody loves something, but what matters is that you love the right things. Okay? So if what you really love is just sort of floating your way along through life, securing as many pleasures for yourself as possible, and not really accomplishing anything except for, well, I had a pretty good day today, I had more pleasures than I had displeasures, then I'd say that that's not a life worth living, in my opinion. I thank God every day for inventing tobacco. What a nice thing he's given us. Now, here's the bad thing, is that man comes in and says, all right, God says, here, my boy, pipe tobacco. This is good. These things are good. Man comes in and invents Camel Crush. Now, this is not my Camel Crush. A friend of mine left this with me. He forgot it. Now, here's the deal. What I've found out about these Camel Crushes that I did not know before is that God's tobacco is in this, as you can see. Here, you want to drag? Toking on that insidious leaf. Top comment of all time. I quote it every day. I quote it with me and Baxter quote this quote every day. This comment is so legendary. Tisk, tisk, little man. Toking on that insidious leaf and partaking in libations. The scandal! I forget who said that. If you're watching right now and you're the one that commented that, please put yourself in the comments, comment something on this video so I can appreciate you. Because I quote this almost every day and me and Baxter love it. But what I was getting at is that we have God's tobacco in here, as you can see. Okay. But man planted a crack rock inside of this, which you push on, you crush it, which apparently is why these are called Camel Crushes. And then you get menthol, which is disgusting. Ew. Might as well vape at that point. Might as well be sucking on a geek bar. Me and my... What a disgusting name, a geek bar. I forget where I was going with all this. Somebody asked me, I guess I'll close with this and answer one question, because I think that maybe some of you guys are getting butthurt that that's a crude turn of phrase. Some of you guys are getting your feelings hurt that I'm not responding to your messages on Instagram in a timely manner. Somebody asked me, I believe his name is Pickle Rick, which I believe is a Rick and Morty reference. Wubba lubba dub dub. He's squanching. And he asked me, why does it take me like a month to respond to my DMs? Well, Mr. Rick, I'm sorry that I didn't get back to you. The chances are I may not get back to you. I have a lot of people trying to get a hold of me. I try to get at least one message out to everybody that reaches out to me, but there's a lot of people messaging me. And I just don't have the time to keep up with everybody and to keep talking with people on there. So if you... I don't say this to discourage you from messaging me. I want you to message me. If you have things that you want to say, If you have a question, please ask. Please, I mean, I'd love to talk to you guys. I've had great experiences. I love talking with you. But just, I ask that you have understanding that I also have a lot of things on my plate. I work 10 hours a day all week. Then I have my studies. I have relationships in person to attend to. I have people bills to pay. I have various things that are more pressing than looking at my phone